I want to take you through the testimony. And I'm not going to get into every single detail of each of these witnesses' testimony, because I know that you were listening and you were writing. You heard from Molly Darno. Molly was a teacher in the school that day. She was in room 224. And she saw the firearm when it was raised, shoulder height, pointed directly at her. And what she noticed was there was no orange tip. You also heard her say that she locked eyes with Jennifer Crumbley's son as he was taking that stance. You heard her testify that she jumped to the right, thank God, just in time, because the shot in her shoulder that she sustained was only inches from her heart. The next witness you heard from was Christy Gibson Marshall, who's an assistant principal at Oxford High School. I don't think there's one of us that would disagree that Christy Gibson Marshall did the most dangerous thing she could do. And she did not follow the protocol. It's probably one of the most courageous things I've ever seen. She walked to the shooter. She saw a student on the floor. And then, when she finally came face to face with the person who had shot this student, she didn't move. She just stared at him. And he didn't shoot her. She testified that she knew him. She was his principal in middle school. And she just couldn't believe that he would do something like that, because she knew him when he was in middle school. You saw the video of that day and what happened. And he just kept going. And even after he left and she had no idea where he was going, she didn't go hide anywhere. She didn't keep herself safe. She bent down to render aid and assistance to that student. And when she rolled him over, she realized it was Tate-Muir. We all know that she didn't and wasn't able to save Tate-Muir. We heard from Cammie Batt, who sold the Caltech and the Derringer to James in June of 2021. She also sold the 9mm 6 Hour to James, with the shooter present on November 26th, the day after Thanksgiving. She testified that James came in and pointed right at the SIG and said he's had his eye on it. She walked us through the process of purchasing a firearm. She talked about the trigger lock statement provided to James upon purchase and the cable lock provided with November 2021 on that gun purchase. Next, we heard from Special Agent Brett Brandon, who's sitting right here. You heard that when he was informed about the Oxford shooting, he left so quickly that when his partner came back, his chair was still spinning. And he raced and drove up there as fast as he possibly could, because it was very much his own community. You heard he went right in and he found Lieutenant Willis, and he said, "Do you know where the gun is, and do you know where it came from, and do you need help?" And so he was responsible for finding out where that gun came from, which he did. He was also responsible, because he chose to be, and watched the surveillance of the video and helped to prepare search warrants. And you heard him testify that as soon as he saw that surveillance video, the one thing that stuck with him is, this is not an inexperienced shooter. This is a shooter that that is proficient with a firearm. Knows what he's doing. Taking shots, a lot of people wouldn't. And what he did was start going to gun ranges and ask people to say, because what he was thinking was, who taught that kid to shoot? He must have been to a range, and he was right. And that's how the investigation led to where Jennifer Crumbley's son learned how to handle a firearm that eventually resulted in killing 4 students in Oxford High School. Can you go back to that? Special Agent Brandon also testified that and showed the purchase, and we showed you each one of those guns. He testified that there is a distinction between a Derringer, a Caltech, and then the 9mm. And what we really heard from him was that 9mm is a much more dangerous gun. It causes more damage to whatever it hits. The bullets are a larger caliber, and it's a very dangerous weapon. He showed you what comes with every gun purchase, which is the ATF pamphlet. He read to you about the warnings. There's a reason they put it in every single gun purchase. And its sole purpose is to protect kids from gun violence deaths. He talked to you about what a trigger lock is and the trigger lock statement. He showed you the Instagram post that's unforgettable. We don't have to really argue about whose gun that was. Jennifer Crumbley told us whose gun that was. She told us when she posted it on social media, it was his Christmas present, and she told you in this trial. That weapon is not just that weapon. It is the defendant's son's gun. It was gifted to him. And not only was it gifted to him, she bragged about it on social media before the shooting. Special Agent Brandon also introduced all of the surveillance and the videos of the shooting range. And you got to see with your very own eyes the training and the preparation that the shooter ultimately used to kill 4 of his classmates. We all saw that. We actually saw the last day he was practicing to kill 4 of his classmates. And there was only one person with him, ladies and gentlemen, and her name is Jennifer Crumbley. And I want you to remember that video. And I want you to remember the look on his face when that target comes back in and he looks at it and he's smiling. Special Agent Brandon also introduced the worksheet. You've seen the worksheet a lot. I bet you that worksheet's burned in your memory, and I wouldn't even have to show it to you. But what Special Agent Brandon testified to and showed you is that wasn't just a picture of any gun. It was a picture of his gun, which was the murder weapon. And he showed you the details, and we're going to talk about that later. And next we heard from Ed Rogroski. We now just call him Ed because he works for the Secret Service. And he testified for an entire day, and he had a lot of information. But he also really couldn't help himself from becoming emotional. And I know that you're going to remember this, but what an extraordinary thing. That's just not seen very often. He sat right there, and he took you through every single action of the shooter and every single death from his memory. And he told you that he could do that because it's burned in his brain. These are seasoned law enforcement. This isn't an act. They hate showing emotion. He probably will never forgive me. Lieutenant Willis tells me all the time how much he really hates me for that.
I would object.
It's my opening. It's my closing.
To what a witness tells her all the time. That's not evidence.
Okay. I'll move on.